We've been very fortunate in the UK because the NHS England sanctioned the use of approved products for use in a couple of patient cohorts. So one is your teenagers and your paediatric populations with relapsed refractory acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and the other indication is for adults with high-grade relapsed lymphoma, B-cell lymphoma. And so there's several centres within the UK, there's 10 in total, that have been commissioned to sort of deliver these therapies, and we at UCL have been part of this. This is an initiative that was really led by Andrea Kuhn at King's, and she's put together this data set. But what she's looking at is whether or not the real world experience with CAR-T mirrors the trials on which the justification for its use in routine clinical practice was based. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about real world experience, and certainly the real world experience in the US seems to mirror quite closely the trials. I think, in the UK, there's been a sort of a slightly less robust experience with complete responses. So I don't think we've seen quite as much, it's not been as closely matched, let's say, to the trial data as what's been reported from the US real world. But I think that's to be expected, because we have to appreciate that in the UK, a lot of the patients who are being referred in have got quite heavy disease burdens. A lot of them are progressing at the point of referral, and they're a very, very challenging, we know this from our trial experience, they're a very challenging cohort to manage. But I think having collated the data in this way, it's really, really important for us within the UK to look at this and then to analyse practice. So how can we improve our outcomes, and how can we see whether or not we can kind of take this CAR T-cell therapy and deliver it more effectively to these patients. There may be big questions that come around bridging therapies, for instance. So it may be that a more uniform approach to bridging in advance of the CAR-T may facilitate perhaps some better outcomes. But I'm not that surprised that the data doesn't necessarily mirror what's been reported in the studies, because real world rarely does. But I think it's a very interesting piece, and it's a very important piece, and I think there'll be a lot of talking points around that particular abstract.